I'm not one of those white people that drinks green juices. Forgive me. But this is actually a Kimberly Snyder green juice. It's romaine, spinach, pear, apple, banana, lemon juice, celery sticks, water, and it's actually really good. The color is atrocious, but it's actually really good. Link to the recipes down below. Greetings and salutations, Eddie here. Welcome back to my channel and happy Monday. By the time this goes up, it may still be Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. So today I just want to talk about something not about, well, it is about books, but I'm not doing like a book review, book tag, whatever. I'm talking to you guys about my writing backstory. So get comfortable. I'm going to try to make it as entertaining as I possibly can. And hopefully you guys are not bored with it. I've always loved writing. I've always loved writing stories, making up my own characters. But I didn't realize that it was a job. When I was about 5 or 6, that's when I really started my career as a writer, or my love for writing. I used to write stories, you know, all the time, and I didn't realize what fan fiction was. For those who don't know what fan fiction is, basically you take a show, let's just say Golden Girls, and you write a story about Rose. Two of my favorite animated series were Pokemon and Digimon Adventure. So I used to write about those characters in a story, and my favorite character from Pokemon was Max. So I would write a story about him. And I thought he was like the greatest character ever. Now he's just like, I'm so annoyed with you. What's funny is that the fanfiction that I wrote for Digimon is now Digimon Adventure Try. I should probably get some compensation for that. No, I'm totally joking. So I had those, and then I also had another story. But the first commitment story idea was centering around a character named Robin. You guys know who Robin is. I was basically modeling it after Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, and that's basically what I did with it. I was doing like Robin, but then in the story he was getting help from Nightwing, who was his brother. Dick Grayson never had a brother, and a Batgirl, and then Catwoman. She was modeled after Halle Berry's Catwoman. I don't know why I decided to do that one. You know what? Probably because I rewatched those films over and over again. Maybe. That story was terrible. My writing was terrible. I didn't know what a paragraph was, so it's all like this giant scroll-like thing. It was terrible. The characters were not well written. The villains were Riddler and Two-Face, so I guess I was watching Batman Forever as well. So I wrote it, and I almost finished it, but it wasn't like the best. It was like the worst. But I just remember like having fun with it, like writing the dialogue, but I knew what quotation marks were. That's probably the only plus of that. And I guess I described the scenery well. I don't know. Never returned to that story. So then that happened, and then a couple of years later, I was in fourth or fifth grade, and decided I'm gonna write my own actual book. And it was like, I really loved the idea of having my name on a published book. The book was 115 pages. It was called Battlefield. No association with the video games. And it was terrible. The book was absolutely terrible. Kid who decided to go to, who was forced to go to military school by his mom, meets a girl on the plane. They get stranded in Mexico. And the war happens. It was absolutely terrible. The book was terrible. The main character's name was Spencer. His love interest was a girl named Everest. And then her cousins are named like Faith and Mario. I don't even know who these characters were. Everything happened so fast. It was absolutely a waste of time. I promise you it was a waste of time. And then I was like thinking, this could have a part 2, could have a part 3, could have a part 4, could have a part 5. None of those happened. I scrapped all of those by choice. And then I forced my friends to read it, and they said they liked it. I'm pretty sure they're lying to my face. I had my mom read it. Probably terrible as well. But my teacher in language arts in 7th grade, because I finished it in 7th grade, she read it. I'm pretty sure she was thinking it was terrible. Tina Hargadin, if you're watching this, I doubt you are, but I love you. I miss you as my teacher. I got more serious with the fact that I want to be a writer. This is what I really wanted to be. Maybe around freshman, sophomore year, I decided, okay, I want to become a writer. I want to be a serious writer. And so I came up with this story. It was like very heavily inspired by Mortal Instruments, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it was a story called Rise of the Huntress. That title has been used several times over. It's about this girl who discovers that she's part of this supernatural warrior society. She is she's destined to save the world from darkness and evildoers and whatever. And she was secretly a phoenix with purple fire. Yeah, it wasn't really all that great. But the main character's name was Rhea Cedric, and I really love that name for some reason. Like, I love the name Rhea, and I also love the name Cedric, so I just put them together, and it worked. I think it worked. And there are characters like Jackson, Scarlet, Darius, Cody. I was really in love with that series, and I just stopped for some reason. It had potential, but it wasn't like... My hair is crazy right now. It was very disappointing. The way that I was writing it was disappointing. So recently I went back to find it, and it was absolutely awful. It was awful. I remember back when I first started writing it, I really wanted a diverse cast of characters. So Rhea was a biracial girl. She was half white and half Native American, I think. And the love interest was Puerto Rican. One of the best friends was from Australia. One of them was half white, half Nigerian. And the characters were going to travel all over to London, to Russia. It was, like I said, it had potential, but my execution of it was not great. And I'm going to be honest, my descriptions of these characters were blunt, and they were not well written at all. Scarlet had like cat-like abilities. Jax had like eagle powers. Yeah, it wasn't really great. So that one was scrapped. But then I think my biggest problem when it comes to writing is I see the series in my head and I focus on those books rather than the first book, which I don't recommend if you want to be a writer. And I'm not a published author, so I don't know what I'm talking about. You're just starting to write like I am. Don't focus on the series as a whole. You can plan the whole series, but focus on the one book for now, and then spiral the book's plot, I guess, from that. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And that's one of my biggest problems too, because I focus so much more on the series than writing the actual first book. So I think I focused on that story for about a year, but then a friend of mine and I tried to write a book together about like Victorian witch hunters. Didn't really work out well because her writing style and my writing style are completely different. As the years went on, my writing did improve slightly. I'm still working on it, obviously. But one of the things about writing for me is that I love creating stories and making up characters. And a lot of times I use video games and films where I can see what the characters look like, and see their fighting style, because a lot of my characters were inspired by the Batman characters in terms of looks and fighting style. And so fast forward, I'm out of high school, I'm in college, it's about 2016, 2017. I decided I'm going to write a middle grade book. And it was a fantasy book about a fox who discovers he's from a long lost kingdom, and he's the reincarnated version of this mythical ethereal warrior, and again taking on darkness and defeating darkness in the final book. And I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed writing it. It was a lot of fun to write. And I found it and I'm like, this really needs to be heavily edited. So I was editing it. Wow. And it was and by the time I got halfway through it, I'm like, this is not the story that I want to publish. I didn't scrap it, put it on the shelf. And so I decided to take that story and reimagine it, and it's now a brand new story. A lot of things were cut out. It's still the same structure and still like the same beginning. How the story progresses and the characters are completely different than the original version. And I'm like, this might be the book that I want to publish. One day I may read it, I don't know, on this channel. But it takes a lot of aspects that I love about books and a lot of aspects about myself and some friends in it. Like the main character, who I named Chase, he lies, he stutters. And obviously when I lie, I stutter. I put that into Chase, and I love that aspect because it was like a realistic aspect of it, because with fantasy it kind of goes like unrealistic, and that's one of the things that I hate about books as well. One thing I hate about books, that everybody speaks clearly, speaks properly. I don't. A lot of my friends don't. A lot of them have speech impediments. Not everybody speaks clearly or properly. This is why half the time in these books I'm like, there's no way that half these characters can speak properly. Which is why I really appreciate the book It, because Bill stutters and nobody judges him, well, except for the bullies. It's just how he talks. And that's why I have these characters. If I publish, or when I publish, I want to be able to say some of these characters' names. Which is why some of these fantasy books, they don't necessarily struggle I don't necessarily struggle with actually saying it. It's pronouncing some of these names. Half of Game of Thrones characters, all of Daughter Smoke and Bones characters, I probably butchered half of their names. That's a tangent, whatever. And so now I'm 24. I've established that I want 2 careers. I want to be a therapist and I want to be a published author. I have 2 books in my head right now that I do want to publish. I'm not going to talk about them here. I find that writing in all genres actually helps me get familiar with them. Like, I have plenty of story ideas for like crime novels, thriller novels, supernatural, fantasy, sci-fi, contemporary, romance, middle grade, adult, new adult, young adult. I want to write a book for each genre and each category, just so I'm familiar with it all and see where are my strong points, weakest points. And I think I love writing supernatural a little bit more than like contemporary or thriller or fantasy and sci-fi. I think they're one and the same. They're not the same in like genre, obviously, but like approaching it because they're so different from our world. Now, my least favorite aspect about writing is actually sitting down, looking at my computer screen, and typing things out. That's probably my least favorite aspect of it because you have to take a big chunk out of your day. Sometimes you're in a rut, you have a writing block, and you're just sort of blech. That's why you have coffee, tea, or green juice from Kimberly Snyder. Oh, that was a big drink. Oh, that's a lot of lemon. Oh, that's a lot of lemon. I can just imagine my name on the shelf next to, you know, these big name writers and having this gorgeous cover, maybe ugly cover, with my name at the bottom or a pen name that I choose at the bottom or at the top, and just being like, I wrote that book. It took me 5 years, blood, sweat, and tears, maybe some psychological therapist sessions, a lot of alcohol, but it's done. It's here, and I'm proud of it. I do want to say to aspiring writers like myself that if you don't publish a book in your 20s right now, it's not a big deal. It's totally fine if your book takes years to write. It's fine. Where the Crawdad Sings by Delia Owens, I believe is her name. She's in her 70s and that's her first book. Your talent does not expire. There's no expiration date on your talent. I think that's the biggest misconception about writing, is that you feel like you need to publish your book now just so that you can have the rest of your life to write and publish more books. And while I do see that concept and I understand it and I totally get it, a lot of these authors, they don't make it until they're in their 40s or 50s, and that's fine. And sometimes their books, they go big. Where the Crawdads Sing, she's in her 70s, she published this big book, Reese Witherspoon picked it for her book club, and she's turning it into a film. That's inspiring to me. And yet there are some authors like Stephen King who started young, and look at him now. He's older and he's published a bajillion books. Some of them are popular, some of them are not popular, and some of them have been turned into shows or films. Half of the young adult books, some of these authors are, you know, older writers, and they probably didn't start their career until they were in their 30s or 40s, and that's okay. And I'm 24 and I'm taking my time publishing a book. Even though it's my like lifelong dream to publish a book, I'm taking my time with it. If I rush it, if I rush my writing and write it in a sloppy manner, it's gonna show in the writing and in the final product, and that's not good. That's not a good way to start your writing career. Just take your time, be patient like I am, and patience is not one of my virtues. But for a more meaningful product, I'm taking my time with it. That was my really rambly, ranting, writing origin story of me. I may do a part 2 to this, I don't know. If you guys enjoy this video, please get a big thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts of if you're writing or if you're not writing. And if you are writing, what books inspired you? For me, I forgot to mention this. Harry Potter, Narnia, Percy Jackson, wow, The Shadowhunter World, Cinder, It by Stephen King. All these books inspired me to write. Where do you guys get your inspiration from? Do you get it from books or films or video games or shows? For me, it's a combination of all of them, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that more in my part 2 video. So, like I said, thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe button is right over there. I'll see everyone soon in my next video. Deuces.